Okay, well, call to order. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the ninth annual general meeting of the Canadian Business History Association. It's great for everyone to be here, and my name is Dimitri Anastakis, and I have had the pleasure of acting as a director of the organization for the past several years, and also as chair of the board. Just to start, we wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. So welcome. This year, as in previous years, our AGM and presentation from our speaker, who will be here by 5 o'clock, he tells me, are being presented online as a hybrid meeting, both in person and virtual online. And I would just ask people who are attending virtually to make sure that their mics are muted. And if you do have any questions later on, you can put your questions in the chat and probably even raise your hand given the number of people, and we probably would be able to answer your question live, because we did do a test earlier on and the microphones and everything are working. On today's agenda, we have a set of business items to attend to, all of which is the basis of the governance of the organization, reporting on its membership, and a report on the financial condition of the organization. After we address these items, we're going to have a quick break, and then we'll hear a talk from our guest speaker, Mark Burry, on a presentation that he has titled "The Crisis in Canadian Historical Writing." So that stands to be very interesting, I suspect. To start, I call upon our secretary, Mr. Ryan Manucha, to provide his statement on the requirement that proper notice has been given to the members and a necessary quorum is present to conduct the business of the meeting. A thank you to Ryan, by the way, who just joined the board recently and has agreed to take on this role.
Thank you, Dimitri. Nice to see you all here in person online. As secretary of the CBHA, I hereby confirm that the proper notice of this meeting has been provided to members and that the requirement that an annual general meeting be held has now been met by the conducting of this meeting. I also confirm that a quorum is present at this meeting to properly conduct the affairs of the meeting and that the meeting may proceed.
Thank you, Ryan. Great. Okay, I would now, as chair, like to provide some remarks about to the membership about the association's recent and future activities. I would say that 2024 promises to be a very significant year of transition for our association. I kind of think of it as CBHA 2.0 because we're doing so many things on so many fronts to revitalize and invigorate the organization, particularly around three aspects of the CBHA and its activities. Combined with some of the matters Joe and Sanjeev, our treasurer, will be addressing this year, we will really be moving forward in a pretty significant manner towards realizing a lot of the mandate of our organization and going forward into the future. First, in terms of our membership, I'm pleased to report that we have a total of 237 individual members of the CBHA, ACHA. Just as an interest's sake, the Canadian Historical Association, which is the largest historical association in the country, has about 750 members. So that's actually not a bad figure for a organization such as ours. Our members are a mix of academics, archivists, corporate executives, business people, general people, and students and young scholars or archivists. So we have quite a broad, diverse range of people who are interested in business history and the history of business in Canada. We have a good distribution geographically and in terms of different types of scholars, different types of archivists, and of course, a very vibrant contributions from the business community, which is one of the most important aspects of our mandate, which is reaching to the business community and to the general public. I'm particularly happy to report on the large number of subscribers to the CBHA newsletter, which Jeremy, our Director of Communications, tells me is now peaking around 1,100, which is a great figure. And we had a meeting last night and he talked about how our return on that in terms of the newsletters being sent out is excellent in the sense that so many people open the newsletters, and probably more than half the people are reading the stuff that we're getting out to the public who are on our newsletter, who are interested. So part of our mandate here is to try to convert a lot of those people into members and into more active participants in our association. So it represents the tremendous interest in what the CBHA is doing, what it contributes to the community. And I did want to specifically thank Jeremy Mosher and his communications team for their work on revamping the newsletter, which is part of our CBHA 2.0 and our reinvigoration. We've got a new newsletter, which has had 2 issues, I think, of the revitalized newsletter. And perhaps most importantly on this front, I want to thank Jeremy and his team for overseeing the building of our revamped website, which has been a pretty significant endeavor. It's obviously a major aspect of our forward-facing engagement, and any of you who have been to the new website, and I encourage you all to go visit the new website. It looks great. It's still a bit of a work in progress in the sense that we've got not full operability in terms of the membership aspect, but it looks amazing, and it is a vast improvement on what we had before, which served us well in the years that we did have that website. It'll provide an easier interface. It provides an interface, has more accessibility and a lot more information, and cleaner and clearer information on the association's growing activities. So in terms of the membership, serving the membership, communicating with the membership, obviously we've made great strides on that front, and that's going to continue to happen over 2024. Second, in terms of the activities that the organization is undertaking, we have a slate of endeavors that continue and expand our work aimed at preserving, promoting, and engaging Canadian business history and business history in Canada. And it's important to recognize it's not just Canadian business history, though most of that is business that happens in Canada, but it's also people who are interested in business who happen to be in Canada from an international perspective. This year, for instance, we're happy to launch our new $10,000 prize Waugh Family Foundation Annual Award, which will be a book prize in every other year, but in some years, alternating years, we'll also recognize career contributions to business history and also public engagement of business history. So on the one hand, we'll have an award that recognizes people who have contributed over the course of their careers significantly to the advancement of business history and the history of business in Canada. But we'll also have a public engagement prize, which recognizes activities such as documentaries, exhibits, websites, databases, museum and archival projects and exhibitions, and contributions to business history journalism. So we're very thankful to the Waugh Family Foundation for providing us the support to be able to offer our $10,000 prize every year. Previously, it was alternating years, and it was solely a book prize, but this allows us to really expand the kind of engagement that we do with the general public and with scholars and with the business community in terms of supporting the mandate of the organization. We kindly thank Rick Waugh and Bonnie Lovelace and the Waugh Family Foundation for their generosity in funding this prize, and especially Rick, I'd like to point out, as the head of the Waugh Family Foundation, we couldn't have done this without his support. We'd also like to thank publicly Malcolm Burrows at the Aqueduct Foundation. Is it the foundation? Aqueduct Foundation, which is administering the prize and is also administering the association's endowment, which Sanjeev is going to speak to quickly in a few minutes. Along with the Waugh Prize, which again will be awarded for the first time this year, we have our usual awards, prizes, fellowships, and grants, which you can see in the newsletter. And I'm not going to take up too much time because we're only limited in the amount of time that we have today, but I encourage you to take a look at the newsletter and the website, which lists all of the different ways that we support business history and the history of business in Canada. As many of you know, because quite a few of you were there, we recently held a celebration for our prize winners in November, which was a pretty good event. We held it at the Albany Club. Again, thanks to Joe and the Albany Club for hosting that. And it had a great turnout, and it was a lot of fun. There was even a couple of gate crashers who showed up. We had no idea who the heck they were, but they had a good time, which I thought was a lot of fun as well. It just goes to show you how welcoming the Canadian Business History Association is. and the Albany Club. So I don't know how the heck they got into the Albany Club. Along with our ongoing CBHA talks, and I just want to take a moment to thank Tabitha Fritz for the work she has done. Go to the CBHA YouTube channel. It's amazing. All of our talks are there. Some of them have been viewed by as many as 6,000 people or 6,000 views. We've got a wide range of talks. I think that talk Tabitha got assigned in classes, perhaps, which may explain why we had a talk about railways and the railway merger between KCS and CP, which has generated an awful lot of traffic. But I would say the CBHA talks are one of our best outreach aspects, and they are posted on our YouTube channel. Please keep an eye out for those coming in the future. Along with those talks, in September of 2024, we'll be holding an academic conference, The Business of Climate, the Climate of Business, in Banff, which we've already been taking proposals for that conference, and we've received a number of excellent proposals. And I encourage anyone who is interested in submitting a proposal for that conference to do so, because we're still accepting proposals. And that promises to be an excellent event, and everyone is encouraged to attend if they can. Beyond that, we're undertaking a number of other projects and outreach events, which you can also see on our website. And going forward, there'll be more information about these activities in our newsletter. And again, thanks to Jeremy and his team for the newsletter. Third, I'd like to say, in terms of the association corporate status, to give the membership an update that we are in the process of transitioning from a for-profit to a nonprofit in terms of our associational status. In early September, Joe engaged with a number of law firms in terms of helping us to transition in this regard. And we did engage Matthew Lederovich and Cindy Q of the law firms Denton's Canada to facilitate this transition after considering a few different firms for the task. And Denton's is working hard to complete this process on our behalf, which has been approved by the board, and everyone on the board is aware of this and has signed off and has supported this shift as we go along, which is almost complete. And we do thank Denton's and Matthew and Cindy for their work in this regard. We'll have more to report to the membership about this transition and continuance from a for-profit to a nonprofit in the near future. The CBHA, ACHA looks forward to more events and outreach in 2024, and we encourage all historians and those interested in business history, people in the business community whose work intersects with business, the economy, consumption, technology, or so many aspects where business interacts with history and our broader society, to consider joining our organization. We know that it's very useful for people in the business community to gain the lessons and the utility of history and what it can do in terms of framing and contextualizing the way we understand business. And it's very important at the same time for the academic community to be able to reach out to the business community and communicate their findings, their research, their critical understandings of how business can be made even better in terms of functioning in the service of Canadians. Now I'd like to take a quick moment and recognize some of our board members who I've already mentioned. Again, our board has acted on prize committees, organized panels, and presented their work at conferences such as the Business History Conference, and conducted valuable outreach to archival professionals, business programs at colleges, numerous other activities. Thank you to each board member. I'm not going to name every single person, but please go to the website and take a look at the board membership, because these are the people who do so much of the work to advance the cause of business history. But I will take a moment to especially thank Joe Martin for all the work he's done for the association as we've gone through this transition to CBHA, or going through this transition to CBHA 2.0. I do not exaggerate when I say that without Joe's tireless efforts, our association probably would not be anywhere near where it is today, and it may not even exist in some ways. And it certainly has grown because of Joe's work. And Joe, I got to say personally, you've been a real rock in terms of getting through some of the challenges that we faced in the last year as we've gone through this transition. I just want to thank you sincerely. Finally, we as an association would like to acknowledge a number of donors, specifically by name, and corporate sponsors who have made significant contributions to the association, either as part of our fundraising or as sustaining contributors. In particular, we'd like to thank Mr. L.R. Wilson and the Wilson Foundation, Mr. Rick Waugh and the Waugh Family Foundation, Mr. John Cleghorn, Miss Louise Leatherdale of Minneapolis, Minnesota, Mr. John Bragg of Oxford, Nova Scotia. We'd like to acknowledge one anonymous donor in particular who's been especially supportive of our efforts over the years. We'd also like to thank Scotiabank, National Bank Financial, Redpath Sugar, Black & McDonald, and Heathbridge Capital Management. Thank you to all of those individuals and firms, and all of you have donated. And I've only given a small sampling of the people who have made contributions. Our fundraising efforts have been pretty wildly successful in the last couple of years, and I want to say thank you to everyone who has contributed to that endeavor. If any members present or virtually have any questions on these matters, there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of our business matters. I'd like to now introduce the president, Joe Martin of the CBHA, ACHA, to address the audience and provide some comments on the past year's activities. By way of introduction, Joe Martin is the former director of the Canadian Business of Financial History Initiative here at the Rotman School of Management, where he was an executive in residence and taught as adjunct faculty from 1995 to 2020 for 25 years. And I know that there are members on our board who have been taught by Joe, who have been personally impacted by Joe's thoughtfulness, generosity, and deep attention and care of Canadian business history. He is also the president emeritus of Canada's History Society, along with being the official historian of the Albany Club, where he was recently named to the club's 2023 honorary of the year. And it's actually a very difficult thing to get. There are very few people who get it, so it is quite an accomplishment. Joe has published 2 best-selling books on Canadian business and financial history, and his recent research examines the 1871 Canadian Bank Act. Joe, please go ahead, and thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri, for that more than generous introduction, and welcome all. I would like to point out that we've set a record. For those of you who are not here but are here by Zoom, this is nearly maybe as bad a day as our annual general meeting last year. It's miserable in a different way, but it is really miserable. And we've actually got 3 members of the association who didn't have to be here. That is 3 times what we had last year. So especially Aidan, Paul, and Amy, thank you very much for coming. So it's great to have you in person. As Dimitri hinted at, last year was quite a year like no other. And as the great English historian Arnold Toynbee observed when he examined the cycles of civilizations and developed this theory of challenge and response, he concluded that by meeting problems head-on with the help of innovative minorities, led by exceptional leaders like our lead donor, Red Wilson, and our board of directors, they succeed. This past year, we did not have the challenge of raising $1 million, which the Wilson Foundation would match. This year, our challenges, plural, were to deal with the changes on our board, change of our corporate status, change in the management of our donor-advised funds, and changes in our operations. Our chair has dealt with the changes in our corporate status and in our board composition. I will deal with briefly with the changes in our donor-advised funds and changes in our operations, as well as report on other matters in organizational renewal. Early on, one of our largest donors expressed concern about using Veritas Trust as the manager of our donor advised funds. Veritas Trust is new in the business, very small, and not that long afterwards, an even larger donor also expressed reservations. We were fortunate to have made the acquaintance of Aqueduct Foundation, one of the earliest and largest of the donor advised funds in Canada, and this is a whole new phenomenon, really dating back to many of the changes that C.K. Johnson from BMO Nesbitt Burns initiated as he pestered Minister of Finance after Minister of Finance. And so there, by the end of the calendar year, we had word that our funds would be transferred from Veritas Trust to Aqueduct Foundation, and that is in the process of happening. Sanjeev and I will be speaking to their representative on Wednesday of next week. And it is a national organization. We've dealt with people in Toronto and Winnipeg, and on Wednesday we'll be talking to their representative in Vancouver. We've done little about fundraising this year, other than receive a commitment of an additional $500,000 from the Wilson Foundation, which kind of shocked us because it was at a function we organized to honor Mr. Wilson. And he came forward with a commitment of another $500,000. And he said to the audience, he hoped that they would be prepared to match that $500,000. He didn't make it conditional on that. He said he hoped to do that. Now, we have not followed up adequately because of the transfer of funds, but I would like to mention the fact that one individual in attendance, the late Darcy McHugh, wrote a check immediately for $1,000, and which was appreciated. So we'll only have $499,000 to go, and that's what we'll be going after this year. The revised website will certainly help us with raise not only membership, but raise money with individuals and with corporations. Based on the advice of knowledgeable members, we will be changing our approach from membership to sponsorship, and I'm happy to elaborate on that if you're interested. Before his resignation, Mark Bonham was not only Secretary-Treasurer, but he also controlled the website and produced a newsletter. And so what we have now is Jeremy Mosher is now responsible for communications. Tabitha Fritz is responsible for the talks and that inventory of things that we have on YouTube. Mona Zhang is working very hard on an approach to the business community. And of course, Sanjeev Kumar is our new treasurer. By the way, in addition to the talk, you've seen evidence of what Jeremy has done in terms of the newsletter. We're hopeful that by the end of March, you'll see it also in terms of the website. In terms of what Tabitha's responsibility, not only do we have more and more regular CBH talks, but also we have, she's done a terrific job on reorganizing on the YouTube. And if I thought it far enough in advance, we could have shown you that. That will certainly be part of our presentation next year. And then Mona has developed an excellent deck reaching out to the business community. This was presented yesterday at our board meeting for the first time and led to a spirited discussion, which will be very helpful moving forward. Speaking of outreach, we really haven't had a plan, and having been a management consultant, I'm not that big on planning because I'm very big on reacting to opportunity, and that's the way most management consultants survive. We reacted well. We had two major events in this past year. Mind you, these were planned events, one in the spring and one in the fall. In the spring, we recognized Red Wilson as the CBHA's first honorary patron. At the same time, we announced that starting last year, CBHA will be launching the Wilson Foundation Undergraduate Essay Prize in Business History. This annual national contest, open to undergraduate essays in either official language, will recognize the best work in business history in Canada. It will be accompanied by the most generous prize of any undergraduate competition in Canada. And in the fall, we held a recognition event honoring our award winners and to recognize the contributions of members and organizations of the association. In the fall of 2024, as Dimitri mentioned, we'll be recognizing for the first time the winner of the Rick Waugh Family Foundation Award. Another outreach has been to the Dictionary of Canadian Biography. David Wilson attended our May event for in honor of Red Wilson, which gave us a chance to catch up. And I suggested to him that in my examination of the biographies of the Dictionary Biography, and let me make it clear, I think the Dictionary of Canadian Biography is terrific. So this is, nothing I say is meant to be critical, but when you get deep into a field, you find a few things. And I guess one of the things I found is that there was a sentence about John Rose, Canada's second Minister of Finance, that wasn't quite accurate. And I was really troubled by this because I published an article with that reference. And so I think it is our responsibility to make corrections, and obviously you have to do your due diligence. We hired a student to do some research, and when we went further, it was clear where the error came from, and it went right back to the 19th century, and you could trace it to a couple of fundamental books, Victor Ross's Volume 2 on the Bank of Commerce, Scholl's Bank of Nova Scotia. So it just kept on building throughout, and so we're going to get that changed. We've also encouraged them to do a biography on George Haig, who was the first general manager of the Bank of Toronto and led the charge on behalf of all the banks against the First Bank Act as proposed by Rose, and later became general manager of the Merchants and was the first president of the Canadian Bankers Association. And we'll be meeting with them soon, with the editor and the author of Fielding, which Sean and I were discussing earlier, because in my view, that biography does not give an adequate picture of the extraordinary contribution that Fielding made in his 18 years as Federal Minister of Finance, the longest term of anyone. And so I think that's of interest, and apparently the editors told me the author is not one of those people who gets upset if you change. He's open for, if you present the evidence, and the evidence I will present is based in the article I did for Financial History on Wall Street on how Fielding solved our problems during the 1907 credit crisis. The Americans needed not only J.P. Morgan, but also Secretary of the Treasury, and Fielding basically did it by himself. Other matters, member Howard Green, who most of you know of, has begun work on an important new business history book. We were approached by Interact, the Canadian interbank network that links financial institutions. They wanted us to help on a history. We didn't get an assignment out of that, but we gained some invaluable experience. Not long after that, Scotia Bank has a Truth and Reconciliation Committee. They approached us, member Brian Getler has been engaged by them to help guide their process. We're now working with a major financial institution to help them by submitting names for consideration. 4 groups at the U of T have reached out to us, including the Wilson Curry Chair of Business History. Thank you, Dimitri, for advice about a May conference on banks, states, and the people, origins, and impacts of banking crisis. We've been in contact with Canada's History Society, publisher of Canada's History magazine, formerly the Beaver. We're having our members contribute articles on business history. And we've also cooperated with the newly formed Canadian Institute for Historical Education. And you may have seen a piece yesterday in the National Post by one of their members chastising McMaster University for apologizing for including Johnny's birthday on the annual calendar. Now, conferences. Given the workload last year, I was not able to go to Oslo as I was planning to do to attend the European Conference on Business History, its relevance. I really wanted to hear about that, but just couldn't. However, I may go to York in the UK in June to attend the joint 49th Economic and Business History Society annual conferences and Association of Business Historians Conference. So 2 organizations, both involved in history, one from more an economic and one from an historical level. Their theme will be connections, the connections between economic and business history, other associated strands of history, including organizational, financial, banking, social, labor, and management history. I've been asked to give a paper on the lack of connections in Canada. I think you're all very much aware of that, but I've also been thinking just going there to learn. Vincent Geloso of George Mason University, in our last newsletter, which came out on the 15th, observed in his book review in that January newsletter, there is a little involvement of economists and historians in business history in Canada, unlike in other countries. Or, as David Wilson of the Dictionary of Canadian Biography has observed, business is the lacunae of Canadian history. We as an association must change that. In terms of organizational structure and renewal, by late May of last year, we had made good progress in discussing a new structure to execute our new strategy, which we'd done in a retreat in the year before. We'd done this with a very experienced management consultant who provided his services, I might add, pro bono. We had come to a better understanding of the role of the chair, governance, being governance, and the president operations. We will return to these issues next month. We had agreed that we would need to hire some staff. I guess my blinding insight on that was when I was writing a very important letter to the CEO of Veritas, expressing the desire to move our funds away from them to another, or to Aqueduct, which is always very delicate. I typed the letter, and then I was going to mail it, and penmanship has been a weakness of mine since grade 1, so I asked my wife, did she know how to type labels? Fortunately, she did, so we were able to send a respectable looking letter to the TD Bank building downtown where Veritas has their office. We had agreed that a block to this, to hiring staff, was the agreement that had been developed by our former Secretary Treasurer with the Wilson Foundation, i.e. a brief phrase preventing us from using the endowment to hire staff. The foundation didn't mind at all eliminating that phrase, so we will return to the issue next month. Based on the above, I'm looking forward to a successful year in filling the lacuna of Canadian business Canadian history business. In conclusion, thank yous. Before turning over the podium to our treasurer, I wish to give my thanks to individuals who have taken on increased responsibilities in the past year. Jeremy Mosher, Communications, Tabitha Fritz, not only CBH Talks, but also our YouTube channel, and Mazang for her work on reaching out to the business community. To our chair, Dimitri, I hope all of you will understand when I say both Dimitri and I hope to spend less time together in the year ahead than the year behind, and to the two new board members, Ryan Manucha as secretary and Sanjeev Kumar as treasurer, as well as to the other members of the board. Then we will be moving to the treasurer's report. I just wanted to say the treasurer's role has not been an easy transition, nor was the communications one for that matter, as Jeremy will attest. We all thought they would be smoother than they were. Sanjeev and I did a few things together, talking to the accountant and developing a budget for presentation for the September board meeting. But he had to carry the ball, and he's done a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Okay, much appreciated, Joe. I'm just going to make sure that this is. We now turn to our association's new treasurer, Sanjeev K. Sharma, for our financial report. I'd like to thank, as Joe did, and echo Joe, for all his work since joining the association in 2023 and getting our financial matters in shape. I'd ask Sanjeev to provide the association's financial report and also another matter to discuss. Go ahead, Sanjeev. And you have that there if you need that there. Pardon me? Oh, yes. Let me get that.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for making it in this weather, and everyone online as well. I hope you can hear me. It feels great to be on this side of the classroom when you've been hearing Joe on the other side. But whichever side, it's a tough act to follow Joe for his passionate description of everything and his energy of going through what we have gone through last year. While you were speaking, Joe, I got reminded of your book title, Relentless Change. So if you have not read, you should definitely read, but that's how the association was going through for everything, on the communication, on the website, and I got the benefit to be the treasurer, to be part of this Relentless Change. So that's great. When the history of Canadian Business History Association will be written, I'm sure this year will be marked as the Relentless Change year, 2.0. So with that, a lot bore you with a lot of numbers, but just to start on a positive note, we are, I would say, financially sound organization from what we stand as a Canadian Business History Association. Comparatively, for any not-for-profit organization having an endowment close to $3 million is definitely positive. And that's why we have an onerous, I would say, obligation to our donors to safeguard their trust, and also for our members to increase the transparency and increase more activities for them. So with that in mind, I'll just share with how we are proceeding on the financials. And then I'll get to what we look into 2024 with the appointment of Equidec as as the fund administrator. Things are going to get better, and with the website and communication all coming along, we'll have more transparency there. So with that in mind, let me first start. Joe, you have covered a lot about the transition and the challenges. As you pointed out, a British historian or British leaders quote, I'll go back and point out the Indian quote, and most of the board members heard that quote yesterday. So history is in India in the 2nd century. It was the first time, like the recorded history, the first time country was coming as one. It was the Harappan culture near the Sindh River. The country was always divided, which is the first time coming together. The king at that time had trouble almost every day. So he almost gave up. Every day he woke up and he said, oh, it's an impossible task to keep this all united. with so many different things. So his political strategist at that time, Chanakya, had a saying, and which is a good saying for where we are. Once you start working on something you're passionate about, don't afraid of a failure and don't abandon it. People who work sincerely are the happiest. And I think that's the core of it, like how the country came into one, like we all acknowledge his work. So that's how the work of CBHA has been this transition has been hard. But now, given the transition, one of the first things we have to do is have the financial statements reconciled with proper governance attached to it. I liked how Joe pointed out that we've started on a process to strengthen the governance across all, with the new secretary coming in, with new accountabilities across Mona, Kadita, and Jeremy aligned. It will be good for us to have audited financial statements going forward. But to start with, we'll first do a review of the financial process. And before I jump into the number, I'll just read out. So far, all our financial statements have come with a caveat from the auditor saying, I have not performed an audit or a review engagement in respect of this statement, and accordingly, I express no assurance thereon. So we want to avoid a situation like this. We want to make sure that financial statements are in line with basic standards. So once I go through the number, I'll go to the next point on the motion of the board has approved the auditor. So on the numbers, if you see overall, we have endowment and cash in total of around 3.45 million. There was a typo here, so you see 3.2. So this 3.4 million is approximately 24% over our previous year, 2.8 million. And as I pointed out, this is a significant balance to have for an association like this. And it's a task for us to take it forward and use it in the right way, so we can both be respectful for our donors' contribution and be honorable to our members' expectation. So if I break it down, most of this is coming from the endowment. It's not coming from membership revenue. It's or any other form of savings or investment. And we have to be really, really thankful to our donors, Red Wilson and Rick Waugh, and other donors who have come forward as part of Joe Martin Fund to match the 500,000 committed by Red Wilson. So it's a huge thank you to all the donors who are either in the room or listening or not listening, or have some have recently passed away. But it is definitely a great kudos to those donors who trust us, and great kudos to Joe, as Dimitri, our chair, rightly pointed out. It's not definitely an exaggeration, but it is a correct quote that if it would not have been the relentless effort from Joe, we would not have been here. And one thing that clearly calls that out are the numbers. So this 3.5 million, we were joking yesterday, it's like Joe's contribution, which is directly associated with this. Thank you, Joe, for that. So with that, our focus is going to be more on understanding how to set up the North Star for the future of the organization. And as we proceed on the North Star, as a formal consultant, I always like to play with the abbreviation, the word. So star, I've played with the word star that I'm trying to read it. So first is we definitely need speed of access to funds. And one example, which Dimitri did not point out here, but like our book award winner last year had to wait maybe 9 months to get the funds, and that is just one example. There are other cases where either they have not been paid or it was paid because there was a mistake. I have personally done those mistakes. So the first is speed of access to funds. We have funds. If anyone is doing any work, or any award, we are obligated to provide them those disclosures in a timely manner. So that's one. Second is transparency in reporting. And as I mentioned that so far our numbers, our books have not been properly reviewed and challenged. Thank you. Thank you for coming in. So we'll complete the review of the statements in 2024 with Mudhad CPA Professional Corporation, which is familiar with the books. And once we have the baseline, we'll appoint more recognizable auditor, let's say, who have experience for not-for-profit. As a custodian of our donors' trust, ensuring regular communication with our donors is also important. What we are doing. So as part of transparency in reporting, we will be doing more of a reach out to our donors. This reach out is going to help us on both ends. One is getting their confidence on how the funds have been utilized, and second, getting their more support. So it will be both for trust and more support. Third is agility in administration. Star SSP, P is transparency, and A is agility in administration. We are living in days of digital, but if you see our funds, how it is managed through the bank checks. Check has to be mail error stamped, all those, like a lot of loopholes there. And we want to stop that. We want to have like a digitally signed tax administration, so everything is documented. It was very difficult as part of the transition to commute and get all the documentation. And if you see all the documentation and to reconcile, it's very difficult. If it is all digital, it is much easier for a review, and it is much easier for recording. So any tax issues we have or any ongoing conversations we have, it will be easy to trace it back. So, and finally, the reporting sophistication and simplicity, like for example, a number of members. Today we rely a lot, and still we rely a lot on our previous treasurer, because all the membership notification, new membership renewal goes through PayPal, which is registered in his account. So we want to make it very agnostic to person, and more aligned to process, and working with Jeremy there on the website development will make sure that is aligned. So we have a good record of membership. We have a good understanding of who are renewing, who are not renewing, and not just reaching out to them asking for the renewal, but reaching out to them to understand why they are not renewing, how we can support them. So and making it more seamless for them to understand why we are reaching out, because there have been some instances where reach out has gone to our members without knowing who did it. So because of the, I would say, lack of sophistication on the website, how it has been like a sweatshop, lack of a better word. The website was maintained more as a sweatshop, like some person sitting on their laptop maintaining it. Now we are moving to a more standardized, and I saw the previous yesterday, it looks great. I'm looking forward to the public launch, and I think we should announce it big on LinkedIn, where most of our prospective members are there. So with that in mind, looking forward to work with the board, looking forward to seek members' feedback on developing the North Star, and getting started to do what we all love to do, bring business history to our members, bring business history to everyone who's interested, and making this all available and accessible in the best possible way. Thank you, Tabitha, for all the great work on the communication. And I'm just amazed the range of topics, from cigarette to railway to new AI. We have covered a range, and that's how we should be focusing our attention on those. And next time when I'm back here, I don't want to talk about our administration. I want to talk about our aspiration. This is the fund. This is what we want to do. So thank you. Thanks, everyone. So I'll hand over back to you, Dimitri.
One more item.
Yes.
So I'm going to let Sanjeev go ahead. This is just this statement here.
As a matter of information, I'm informing the meeting that our recent board meeting the association board, the recent board meeting just last night, we're coming fresh out of it. The association voted to reappoint Azad Mudar, CPACA, as the review auditor for the 2024-2025 fiscal year. This will be the first time we'll be doing such a review. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev. That's great. Excellent. Really great work. And thanks to everybody who has participated today, and to the board members. And again, it's clear from Sanjeev's remarks that we're really moving in a great direction. As I said at the end of our board meeting last night, we're really cooking with gas. So it's great to be able to work with people who are really engaged and interested in this and dynamic. We'll now take members' questions from the audience in person and also on, there you go, okay. Online. If there are any questions about any of the matters that have been discussed, please raise your hand and or send a message to the chat. Any questions, comments?
I'll ask a question.
You don't have to.
No, I might have to.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Paul. Paul Litt, a member of our association.
What's the rationale, if any, for the association being a profit organization?
I think, you know, at the beginning of our association back when we first started as a pretty small organization that didn't have, I mean, it was nebulous, and the way it was set up by our first secretary treasurer, it was set up in that particular manner. I don't know how else to describe that beyond the fact that he had set it up in that particular manner. That's what he was most comfortable with. And, you know, at the time when, and I just like to also mention Chris Kobrak, who was a real guiding force and light in the organization's initial launch. Chris and Joe and I and Mark, you know, really gave Mark a lot of leeway in terms of the way that the organization was initially established. And that's pretty much, yeah, that was the way that Mark had established it. I don't know if Joe, if you want to reply to that, and any you want to add to that?
Well, Paul, it was clearly a mistake. And I think Dimitri and I probably trusted too much. You know, my first job after college was in the investment business. We did deals at $100,000, and I thought a long time ago when I was on money on the phone, and didn't even take gas. So when we were $12,000 or $15,000, we wanted to invest. And I'd say we were getting information that we were not for profit when we were not. And so thank you to Tabitha, who sent a very challenging email, also prompted by a woman in the Superior Court who was not here tonight, saying, how come we're incorporated this way when we should be incorporated another way? Once we found that out, we moved as quickly as we could to change it, and that's why, certainly for me, the months of July to December of last calendar year were a lot harder than they should have been. So we made a mistake. Yeah. And we rectified it.
I think it's a lot easier to incorporate as a for-profit than it is as a non-profit, to be honest with you. Or at least it was from Mark's perspective.
We got some great help, by the way.
Truly.
Former chair of the Board of Governors of the University of Toronto. Was very, very helpful, no cost to us, advising us. Once we discovered the problems, that here's what we need to do. That came before our hiring, and then we got Tim Kennish was on the Zoom. He recommended one particular firm, Mona, who's on our board, recommended
another. We met with both of those, and we decided on the Denton firm, and they've done great work. And so that, in my mind, it's been a tough year. And I'm certainly, mind you, I was looking forward to last year too at this time of year, but we certainly had our faults.
Thanks for the question, Paul, and happy to field any questions in addition to that, after the meeting, because we're limited in terms of time around that particular issue. Other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, let me just see if anybody online's got a question. I don't think so. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, with that, I would like to conclude the business matters of the annual general meeting of the CBHA. And I'll just ask for a motion of adjournment. I'll put forth a motion of adjournment if anybody wants to second it. Tabitha Fritz, thank you. All those in favor of adjourning the formal proceedings, thank you very much. We'll take about a 5-minute break, 4 or 5 minute break, just for people to recharge their batteries. And when we return, we'll hear a presentation from our speaker, Mark Burry, who has arrived, who's going to be talking about the crisis in Canadian historical writing. Thank you all, and we will look forward to a great 2024. Okay.